We interrupt this program to bring you...
This is my message to you.
I figured I could get this review in while it's still around 420. Bob Marley One Love is about the life of Bob Marley. So Bob Marley One Love is a biopic about Bob Marley, about his life, about his inspiration for music. At least that's what it's supposed to be. That's what it's supposed to be, but that's not what you get. That's what it's supposed to be, but that's not what you get in this movie. That's what it's supposed to be, but that's not what you get in this movie. I'll jump right into what I didn't like about the movie. I'll jump right into the things I didn't like. I probably won't get to talk about everything, but I do want to talk about a few things that not only bother me, but ruin the experience for me. That not only bother me, but ruin the experience. I've been a fan of Bob Marley for a long time, so when I heard that they were making a biopic about him, I got really excited for it. I seen the Marley documentary made in 2012. I seen the Marley documentary that came out in 2012 over a dozen times, and I watched it right before walking into this movie. And I really think that compromised my experience with One Love, because the documentary has more details and far better storytelling. I think that compromised my experience because there's far better details and storytelling in that documentary than anything we get in the movie, than anything we get in One Love. I had a bad feeling when the opening to the movie starts with text on the screen delivering exposition. I knew the movie couldn't be 100% accurate on his life. I knew the movie couldn't be 100% accurate on his entire life. But when I rewatched it, I paused it at the moment that I gave up. But when I rewatched it, I paused it at the exact moment where I gave up on getting anything that I expected to get. Ironically, it's 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the movie. It was clear that we was going to start from after Bob Marley was already worldwide famous. It was clear that we were going to start after Bob Marley was already famous worldwide. Ironically, it's 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the movie. That's when I knew, and the movie made it clear that we were going to start with Bob Marley when he was already famous worldwide. That leads me to my first problem with the Bob Marley movie, and that's how out of order it is. I'm going to compare this movie to the Ray Charles movie that came out with Jamie Foxx. I'm going to compare this movie to that for a minute. If you compare how both films used the flashbacks, Ray used them to show another side. Ray used them to show another side of Ray Charles that not everybody experienced, not anybody who's just a casual fan, so that by the time that it gets to the grimy parts of his life, you see where it's coming from. Bob Marley One Love. Bob Marley movie uses flashbacks that should have been in the first 30 to 40 minutes of the movie. The Bob Marley movie uses flashbacks that would have been better in the beginning of the first 30 to 40 minutes of, no, I'm gonna say 30. In the beginning of the first 30 minutes, instead of used as a tool to emphasize Bob Marley and Rita's relationship, to someone just watching the Bob Marley, to a casual fan just watching a Bob Marley movie, to a casual fan watching the Bob Marley movie. By making the creative choice to not start the movie on a young Bob Marley, that takes away the parts of his life. That takes away an aspect of his life that takes away parts of his life that are the most interesting and would make for a better story. I know that because I seen the 2012 Marley documentary. There's plenty of source material about Bob Marley's childhood they could have used to help flesh out Bob Marley's character in the movie. Instead, we get our brief flashbacks of Bob and Rita as teenagers to establish their relationship and their religion. It takes 55 minutes for this movie to show Bob Marley and the Wailers record Simmer Down. That's the scene that should have been in the first 20 minutes. The music is surprisingly another problem I had. The music let me know how much of Bob Marley's life we were gonna be skipping. By the songs they name within the first 4 minutes of the movie. We get probably one of Bob Marley's most popular songs, Three Little Birds, in the very beginning. Just a little bit before that, he picks up Ziggy and Steven, which are his sons. With those visual guys, I knew they'd be skipping a lot about Bob's life before he became famous worldwide. With those visual guys, I knew that we'd be skipping a lot of years in Bob's life. With those visual guys, I knew that we'd be skipping a lot of years in Bob Marley's life. When the movie shows the group performing or working on music, just the direction and the delivery, it reminds me of Dewey Cox's Walk Hard. Out of all the creative liberties to take, I'm sure there was a better way to reach the point they were going for. Instead of getting excited to hear my favorite songs being played in the movie, I was rolling my eyes every time a song was name dropped. At a certain point, it felt like they cared more about the soundtrack. At a certain point, it felt like they cared more about the soundtrack. At a certain point, it felt like they cared more about selling the soundtrack than they did about the story of the movie. That's where my bet would go at least. That's where my bet would go at least. That's where my bet would go at least. As far as character introductions, Bob Marley One Love is horrible at them. Bob Marley One Love is horrible at them. If I didn't see the Marley documentary, and it was left up to this movie to tell me who that person is and how they relate to Bob Marley and what role they played in Bob Marley's life, I'd only know Rita. And maybe the guy who stole. And that part of the movie where they confront his cousin for stealing, that was the part I was ready to walk away. Luckily, the movie ended not too long after that. The way that scene is described in the documentary is way more interesting than how they executed it in this movie. I feel like the creator took shortcuts throughout the entire movie. Reynaldo Marcus Green directed this, and the cinematography is solid, but the writing is standard at best. I do want to end on some good notes. This movie does do some things well. It's just too bad they're not in a better movie. The characters were well played, but Rashana Lynch as Rita Marley steals the show. The movie is at its best and most interesting when she's on the screen. As far as range and emotion, she gets the most to do. There is one aspect they touch on that I'm glad they brought up. Like, Bob Marley has a lot of kids by a lot of different women. Bob Marley has a lot of different kids with a lot of different women. Rita talks about it in the documentary, but the movie dives deeper into what she thought and how she felt about that situation. Well, I appreciate the movie for exploring that. It's the only time it explores anything. But Lashana Lynch plays that emotion well, and it's the thing that leads to her having the best. It's what leads to her having the best performance in the entire movie. Kingsley Benadir plays Bob Marley well enough. It never moves past being an impression. I blame the script more than the actor. Because the script only gives him surface level Bob Marley. The director makes sure he has the look of Bob Marley down. He even reenacts some of the moments from the photos. But somehow still misses the spirit of Bob Marley. As excited as I was to see this movie and hear that they were making it, I'm bummed out about how much of a missed opportunity and a disappointment this movie wound up being. If you're a fan of Bob Marley's music and you want to learn more about Bob Marley, I'd highly recommend the 2012 Marley documentary over One Love. It's far more detailed and the information is just as accurate. It's far more detailed and the source of the information is just as accurate. It's far more accurate and the source of the information is just as accurate as Bob Marley One Love. I didn't see anything in this movie that makes me want to watch it again. Anytime I get in the mood for a documentary, or once every 420, if I want to watch a Bob Marley movie, I'd rather watch the documentary. If I'm going to watch a Bob Marley movie, I'd rather watch the documentary and be more I'd rather watch the documentary and be more entertained by the end. I'm disappointed to say Bob Marley One Love gets 4 joints out of 10.